Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. And of course, I'm your host, John June. And on this lovely Monday evening, it will be a solo pod. Our boy Greg is not with us, but he will be back with us on Wednesday, best believe. But week 12 in the books. Hope y'all had a lovely Thanksgiving. Hope that you got a lot of family, a lot of food, and a lot of football. So with that being said, let's jump into this week 12. It was a rough week out there. Some low-scoring matchups. Did still have some high-scoring matchups as well. But obviously, we're going to break down every position, the studs and the Jags, those top three performers, breaking them all down, also running through the top 12s. And then those Jags, those just the guys, those guys that you would have been better off picking up somebody off the waiver wire and starting one of those guys. And obviously, we'll get into the news and the injuries, and then obviously waivers. So, starting with the quarterback position, as we always do, the number one quarterback on the week. We've been saying that for a few weeks now, this guy would be the number one quarterback. Did it a couple times, this being one of them. Not so much the other times, but Josh Allen, of course, I'm talking about him. 23 of 28, 260 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, also adds 8 carries for 43 rushing yards. That was good for 26.7 standard quarterback points. Josh Allen, again, just continuing to have these it's a combination of his skill set and the offense that they play in, but these matchups as well. New Orleans was just a cake spot of a matchup against New England next week, in what will be an interesting matchup, just for what it means for the division and the AFC East, as well as what it means for just AFC seeding in general, as New England could potentially make a run here for the number one seed. So obviously continue to fire that man up. Moving on to the quarterback 2 on the week, that would be Aaron Rodgers. Fractured toe and all, did not stop the man. 28 of 45, 307 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Also added 2 rush attempts for a touchdown there, so 26.3 PPR points. Aaron Rodgers, again, just fractured toe did not stop him. He diced up this Rams defense. I kind of thought, had a feeling that he would have a good game here, and he did that here. So you gotta love that. Moving on to quarterback 3 on the week, that would be Dak Prescott. Played on Thanksgiving. 32 of 47, 375 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 25.3 points there. That wasn't a loss there for the Dallas Cowboys. 47 pass attempts. Anytime Dak Prescott's going to throw the ball more than 40 times, you got to feel really good about the fantasy output that's going to be on the end of that. So, gotta love that performance there by Dak Prescott. Rounding out this top 12 here, Matthew Stafford comes in at 4, Mac Jones 5, Derek Carr 6, Carson Wentz 7, Justin Herbert 8, Trevor Lawrence 9, Joe Burrow 10, Teddy Bridgewater 11, and Andy Dalton comes in as the quarterback 12. It was not a great week for quarterbacks, but the guys that did finish in the top 12, some of them had some really good weeks. Mac Jones, looking at you, had a really good week, 310 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, also added 11 yards rushing there. So just all in all, 21.5 points there. Gets a matchup against Buffalo, which did lose Trey White, on defense. So you have to wonder, what that looks like there for Mac Jones potentially. But Justin Herbert in a loss, over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Joe Burrow, who could have had probably a much bigger day if Pittsburgh was just competitive on the other side. I mean, he was 20 of 24, just 190 passing yards and a touchdown there to go along with an interception, but an 8-yard rushing touchdown there. Finished with 16 points. The quarterback 10 on the week, gets to go up against the Chargers next week with Justin Herbert. So that'll be an interesting matchup between these two quarterbacks. So definitely have to take, definitely looking forward to that in week 13. But got to cover some Jags here. And, one of them, my quarterback start of the week, Tom Brady. I mean, he fell victim to his own teammate in Leonard Fournette, who we'll obviously get to in a little bit. But Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton. I mean, hear this, right? Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton combined yesterday, and I know this because I have three of them. Three of them are make up, my two super flex teams, but they combined for 9 interceptions yesterday. Pretty wild. Jalen Hurts threw 3, Lamar Jackson 4, and Cam Newton threw 1. No, he threw 2. Ryan Tannehill also did not have a great day there either. So, again, tough week for quarterbacks, but next week we hope that it's a much better week. Obviously, with some big names on bye, mainly Patrick Mahomes. It'll make it like that. So, moving on to the running backs the running backs on the week there. The running back studs, starting with the running back 1 on the week, and we talked about him a little bit, briefly mentioned him, Leonard Fournette. Try to do his best Jonathan Taylor impression and instead does an Austin Eckler impression. 17 carries, 100 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Also adds 7 receptions on 8 targets for 31 yards and a 4th touchdown there. So 44.1 PPR points, just an absolutely dominant performance there by Leonard Fournette. Indianapolis has, they can be run on a little bit, but they're also, a pass sieve for sure. And so, they came out in here trying to stop Tom Brady, and that led to a lot of running room for Leonard Fournette, who, averaged almost 6 yards per rush attempt there, 100 yards on 17 carries. So great day for him. Another running back who had a big day, that would be Joe Mixon, 28 carries, 165 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, added 4 receptions there for -2 passing yards or receiving yards, 32.3 PPR points. I mean, Joe Mixon's he's been on one for these last couple weeks. In the previous game against Vegas, had another 30 rushing yards or 30 rushing attempts and 130 yards. So, he's just, racking up the yardage and the volume right now. And heading into the fantasy playoffs, you've got to feel real confident if you're a Joe Mixon manager about how he can lead you to the promised land here with this stretch of run that he's getting here. And gets the Chargers next week, which we know is a favorable matchup for running backs in fantasy. So it just, you've got to be licking your lips looking at that matchup there. So next coming up is the RB3. That's Elijah Mitchell, man. I mean, this dude has been balling. We've been talking about him as a guy that you can't worry about what's going to happen with him. You kind of just got to ride it out. He's the perfect RB2 to have, and he's been performing as better than that in these last few weeks. 27 rush attempts here against Minnesota. That was good for 133 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown. But the part that you have to love about Elijah Mitchell, the part that wasn't there to start the year, is that he's getting targeted in the pass game. Saw 6 targets, was good for 5 receptions and 35 receiving yards, 27.8 PPR points on the day. You gotta love it from Elijah Mitchell, and again the volume, right? The fact that Deebo Samuel can be involved, Jeff Wilson can be involved, and that Elijah Mitchell over the course of a game can still touch the ball 27 times. You have to love that for Elijah Mitchell. Moving on to obviously rounding out this top 12 here, Cordell Patterson. I mean, high ankle sprain and all, coming in here finishes the RB4. Austin Eckler, the RB5, Javontae Williams, the RB6. A.J. Dillon, 7. Jonathan Taylor, 8. Myles Gaskin, 9. Tying with Josh Jacobs for 9. Dontrell Hilliard, 11. And then Darrell Henderson coming in as the RB12 here. When you look at this, man, I mean, Cordell Patterson, he's been obviously he's been awesome, but to get him back this week and game time decision and all, comes in 16 carries, a $108 and 2 touchdowns. Gotta love that there. Austin Eckler just continuing to be a godsend there at the running back position, the top 5 almost every week it seems. And then Javontae Williams, I mean, a lot. I'm not going to get carried away here. A lot of it came on a 42-yard reception. Did get a rushing touchdown early in the game, which set him up real nice. But not going to get entirely carried away there because Melvin Gordon still lurking in the shadows there. And then Josh Jacobs, man, I mean, he's been something else. I mean, hopefully it seems like he's okay with the injury, but he's really been something else in the running back position, and is somebody that could really lift you up here for the fantasy playoffs. Some honorable mentions here. Matt Breida had a big game on Thursday night, Thanksgiving Day. Had not a big game, but a nice game. And then Jamal Williams as well. DeAndre Swift suffered a shoulder injury in the Thanksgiving game, and so Jamal Williams filled in. So, ended up having a top 15 week in PPR leagues. Rounding out these, moving on to these Jags, these just the guys. Naji Harris, not a great day there against the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, it was usually Naji Harris is game script proof, but it seems like they made a consistent, concerted effort. The Bengals did to shut down the Steelers run game and shut down Naji Harris. Devontae Freeman, if you were looking to him, I had him listed as an RB2, I think a top 18 play. Did not come through this week, so that game was just weird. I mean, Lamar throwing 4 interceptions. Just the overall, the whole game was just really weird. Saquon Barkley, not a fantastic day there. And then, again, Nick Chubb on the other side of that weird game that we saw Devontae Freeman in, did not have a great day either. Only 8 rush attempts there. I mean, this Browns offense is, you've got to be a little bit concerned about, obviously Baker Mayfield, his health, and what that does to this entire offense. So, especially Kareem Hunt being back, that it was already, rearing its ugly head in the game where we saw Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb just splitting time and, splitting basically essentially, in whole drives here. I mean, Nick Chubb only saw 12 opportunities in the game. I mean, this is a game you lost 16-10, right? So, it was really tough to watch. Moving on to the wide receiver position, the number 1 wide receiver on the week, that would be the rookie wide receiver. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row we got a rookie finishing in this spot, but that'd be the rookie wide receiver, Jalen Waddle. 10 targets, 9 catches, 137 yards, and a touchdown there. I mean, this was the breakout game for Jalen Waddle. I mean, he's been obviously has been really good all season, but this game was his best game of the year. 137, that's big time yardage there. 28.7 PPR points. I mean, with Tua, we talked about Tua briefly. With him continuing to take that step forward. And again, you guys know this if you've been listening for a while. Not been the biggest Tua fan, but he and Jalen Waddle, they've got something cooking. And if Tua keeps taking these steps, that only helps Jalen Waddle here. The wide receiver 2 on the week, man, T. Higgins, 8 targets, 6 catches, 75 receiving yards, 114 receiving yards and a touchdown there. 23.4 PPR points. Gotta love that, man. I mean, T. Higgins was absolutely phenomenal. We've been talking about it for weeks. The target share has been there. I mean, he's got to be a guy that you despite what the production has been, you got to put him in your lineup almost every week because again, while Jamar Chase out targets him or out produces him. Sorry, I had to sneeze. While Jamar Chase outproduces him from a fantasy perspective, T. Higgins is still seeing the volume, equivalent volume. So you definitely want to keep throwing him out there. The wide receiver 3 on the week, that would be Adam Thielen. I mean, this dude is a touchdown machine, apparently. He's 7 targets, 5 receptions for 62 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. It was 23.2 PPR points on the day. I mean, Adam Thielen and Kirk Cousins just have this chemistry that you just can't really account for, I guess, when you do projections and things, because, I mean, obviously you can project it, right, from Thielen's perspective, because you know that his touchdowns are coming in the red zone, and when they get down there, Kirk Cousins is looking for him. So you can project it that way. But he's just, you don't want to bet a guy to score every week. But this guy's literally scored. They've played 11 games, and he's scored in all but 3 of them. So then he's got 10 touchdowns on the year. So you definitely have to imagine that this guy is just going to keep balling out. Excuse me. Sorry. Had to sneeze again here. But rounding out this top 12, Kendrick Bourne comes in at 4, Hunter Renfrow 5, Deebo Samuel 6, Stephon Diggs 7, Deshaun Jackson 8. Odell Beckham 9, Cooper Kupp 10, Deontay Johnson 11, and Devontae Adams finishing as the wide receiver 12. Obviously, Kendrick Bourne, I gotta love that one. Dude saw 6 targets, 2 touchdown receptions on 61 receiving yards. Gotta love that. Hunter Renfrow, that's a guy that I know Greg has been going back for all year. And, obviously we've been a huge fan of here. So obviously gotta love that. And then Deebo Samuel, I mean, do you call him a wide receiver or a running back? Because my guy has basically rushing touchdowns in each of his last 2 games. I think it might even be like 3 games of that. He had 2 in this game, has had more rushing yards than receiving yards. I think that's 2 games in a row now. He's just been getting it done. So I think he's game script proof at this point for sure. And then Odell Beckham Jr. having a good game. I mean, it was nice to see, I guess, but you would like to see it, more consistency. Granted, it was only 1 game, so we'll take that with a grain of salt. We'll see what happens next week. But Cooper Kupp, curious to see what's going on there. We talked about how Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, they would always be the split, and then by the time you look at the end of the season, it's evened up a little bit. Don't know if that's the phase of the season with which we're entering here. Maybe teams have figured out something to kind of try to slow down Cooper Kupp. You can't stop him, but slowing him down, I guess you can definitely try to do that. I think that's it on the top 12. Some honorable mentions. Darnell Mooney had a great game on Thanksgiving. Cedric Wilson, if you took the shot as a fill-in for CeeDee Lamb, he had a really good game there. So did Michael Gallup. Josh Reynolds on Thanksgiving. That one's for Greg. And then Randall Cobb had a good game as well. For some Jags, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Elijah Moore, Michael Pittman Jr. It's pretty funny. 2 of those guys, second-year guys, 2 of those guys, rookies. So, but yeah, those guys did not get it done this week. Think, all these guys are not overly concerned about. Elijah Moore has a tough matchup this week against Philadelphia, but think you maybe have to play him. Who knows? Michael Pittman Jr. I think that will correct itself as well. And then Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, those guys, you just got to keep throwing them out there. Moving on to the tight end position, Jack Doyle, the tight end 1 of the week. Man, that's weird. 7 targets, 6 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown, 20.1 PPR points. No Travis Kelce. I guess anybody could have literally finished here, but it was weird that Jack Doyle did because it was just weird. Rob Gronkowski finishing as the tight end 2. Welcome back, brother. 10 targets, 7 catches, 123 receiving yards. No touchdown, but that was good for 19.3 PPR points. So Gronk looks like he's his old self again. Was just a demon there for the Indianapolis Colts, and so you gotta look like that going forward here for Gronk. Dawson Knox, the tight end 3 on the week, 3 targets, 3 catches, 32 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, 18.2 PPR points. Phenomenal week there by Dawson Knox. If you've been waiting for him and you took the shot on him these last couple weeks, you've got to be excited about the performance. The tight end 4 on the week, Mark Andrews. I mean, this guy has just been awesome. I'll get into him later in the week, but he's just been phenomenal. Dalton Schultz, the tight end 5, Cole Kmet, the tight end 6, Pat Freiermuth, the tight end 7, TJ Hawkinson, the tight end 8, David Njoku, the tight end 9, Jimmy Graham, the tight end 10, Brevin Jordan, the tight end 11, and Jared Cook finishing as a tight end 12. In terms of honorable mentions, there will be none. In terms of these guys in this top 12, I think Brevin Jordan is interesting. He's a rookie. Had a good matchup this week, came through, has another good matchup coming up against Indianapolis. I think he can also come through, so that'll be nice. Pat Freiermuth suffered an injury, so that sucks. Curious to see what happens with Cole Kmet, because this past game in Chicago functions better with Andy Dalton. I don't think that I'm saying anything over, I don't think that's overly hot takey or anything, actually factual, but Cole Kmet is interesting with Andy Dalton under center. So in terms of Jags, Mike Gesicki, I think we have to have a conversation here. I mean, started out hot. We had a question about whether he and Tua could coexist. We thought the answer to that question was yes, they could, but things are indicating that maybe they can't. Again, that's tough. This is a guy with literal 20-point upside, so maybe not in a rush to get rid of him. Kyle Pitts, not a great week for him, but I think he's just going through a tough stretch of matchups here. I know he's treated, he doesn't line up like a tight end traditionally on offense, but teams are making a concerted effort to take him away, and he's playing against some teams that have been pretty good against the tight end position in recent weeks. So I think once he gets into a nicer stretch of matchups here, we could see the ceiling here from Kyle Pitts, who I think is due for some touchdown regression. Hunter Henry, not a great week, but he's been all touchdown production, and then Noah Fant has not been was not great this week either. So I think that's really it from the tight end position. Let's talk about waivers, let's talk about injuries. Starting with the big news that came out this weekend, Christian McCaffrey suffered an ankle injury. It was initially thought to be just something week to week that he might be dealing with, but then he was put on injured reserve, and once you're put on IR twice, you are out for the rest of the year. So CMC automatic out for the season there. So seems like we have a situation in Carolina with the running backs that we have to sort out. They are on bye this week, so get an extra week to kind of resolve the situation if you are the CMC manager. Dalvin Cook suffered a dislocated shoulder, also suffered a torn labrum. So this doesn't mean it's season ending, but it definitely could be season ending here for Dalvin Cook. So that's tough there if you are the Dalvin Cook manager. Randall Cobb, he suffered a groin injury, so was on his way to a really good game here. So we'll have to see what it means for him going forward. But, you know, definitely something to watch, I guess, in deeper leagues. And then Dan Arnold, our guy Dan the man, 46-week MCL sprain there for the automatic tight end stream of the week. So we will have to take a look at that situation in Jacksonville. But moving on to the waivers, and before we do that, gotta let you know who's on bye and who not to start this week because you won't get fantasy points. Carolina Panthers players, Cleveland Browns players, Green Bay Packers players, and Tennessee Titans players will not get you fantasy points if you put them in your lineup. But these guys I'm about to throw out on the waiver wire, some of them potentially will get you fantasy points if you put them in your lineup, just as long as they're not on bye, because I am going to talk about some guys who are on bye this week. But starting with the quarterback position, let's go with a guy who, by the time you will listen to this, maybe he will have played, maybe he may not have played. I don't know, but Taylor Heineke, 38% rostered, probably the top streaming option at the position this week. Gets Las Vegas Raiders defense that has been getting roasted by opposing quarterbacks. So definitely love that matchup there. If you can't get Taylor Heineke, my next go-to would probably be Tua Tagovailoa. He's played really well in these past few weeks. And then, he gets the New York Giants this week, a defense that struggled versus the pass. And so I think, with him, he's got rest of season value potentially here too, with a nice schedule down the stretch. So Tua is a guy that I definitely am interested in. And then Jimmy G comes in as the third quarterback that I would look to, 34% rostered in Yahoo leagues. So he's definitely available. Gets to go against Seattle, which again we know has struggled against quarterbacks. Moving on to the running back position, let's start with the headliner, and that is the situation in Carolina. And what do we do there? Chuba Hubbard, Amir Abdullah. Chuba Hubbard has seemed to have taken a back seat to Amir Abdullah as the backup running back in Carolina. Now, I don't know if that was because they saw Amir Abdullah as a better complement to CMC, or and they view Chuba Hubbard as a direct backup. Again, I'm not entirely sure. We saw Amir Abdullah obviously lead the running backs in pass routes in this last game, which you would kind of expect with a negative game script that they were facing. So it really is a mystery to me which back that you should go with. I would honestly, really take a look at it. I think Chuba Hubbard will probably cost more because he definitely is the guy that people know, and he's the name that we kind of flocked to when this first happened. He is also less available though. He's available in or he's only rostered in 39% of leagues, so he's available in 61% of them. You have to imagine that a lot of the CMC managers probably held on to him, but the guy who will be available, Amir Abdullah, he's rostered in 0% of leagues, so he is available. He could have a role there, and he could potentially be the guy here taking over for the Carolina Panthers, especially if their schedule is kind of tough. If they end up in a lot of negative game script, you could see a situation where Amir Abdullah just happens to be on the field because he is the pass-catching running back. Rounding out the rest of these running back waivers, Alexander Madison would be he'd be the guy to get. Again, he's the least available of this group. But if I had waiver, the number one waiver, if I had 100% of my fab and I had to spend it on somebody, it would be Alexander Madison. Secondly, first, it would be first, and then it would be these Carolina backs potentially. But Jamal Williams also has a ton of intrigue, 39% rostered, so he's available in 61% of leagues. We saw that DeAndre Swift suffered an injury. I failed to mention that actually. He suffered an injury on Thanksgiving, a shoulder injury, so have to see how long that'll keep him out. But Jamal Williams could potentially be a workhorse back for the Detroit Lions for these next few weeks. Tevin Coleman available in just 18% of leagues. Greg told you to go get him. I told you to go get Ty Johnson. Turned out that you wanted to go get Tevin Coleman because he led the Jets with 18 carries, only had about 67 rushing yards or so, was not ultra involved in the pass game, but seems to be the lead dog in terms of rush attempts here for the Jets, who do get Philadelphia, so not a great matchup there. But if you were looking for running back health, that would be the guy in that backfield. Matt Breida was active in favor of Zach Moss on Thursday on Thanksgiving. Saw some decent work, also scored a touchdown. Looks good actually in that Buffalo offense. Has a lot of speed. They kind of, I think they not miss him, but I think they need somebody like that to complement this offense that likes to spread defenses out, go a lot of four wide, get a lot of receivers on the field. And you got a mobile quarterback in Josh Allen. So I think a home run hitting running back like that makes a ton of sense. So Matt Breida could have a role here at the near the end of the season. And then, some guys who probably aren't going to help you start this week, but it's cold out. It's cuffing season. We're getting closer to Valentine's Day. You got to shore up your running back situation. Get some of these insurance policies at the running back position. We obviously saw Christian McCaffrey go down. We see Dalvin Cook go down, and now Alexander Madison, Chuba Hubbard. They're the top of the line in terms of waivers. Jamal Williams, almost the same thing. You want to shore up these guys without having to spend any fab. So Sony Michel, Ronald Jones, Khalil Herbert, guys that could end up being workhorses if the guy in front of them goes down. And with running backs, it's not inconceivable. It's the most injury-prone position in football, and one of the most injury in one of the worst injury luck sports in football. So Sony Michel, Ronald Jones, Khalil Herbert, those are just examples of three guys that if you have an extra spot on your bench, you're sitting there, holding on to an extra kicker or a backup quarterback in a one quarterback league or something like that. These guys have more value on your bench than they do sitting out on waivers because, again, they could unlock essentially you. And I'm talking if you don't have Darrell Henderson, Leonard Fournette, or David Montgomery. If you don't have one of those guys and you just happen to pick up one of these guys and one of those guys goes down and now you have this guy becoming a starting running back on your team, it makes your team better. And you don't have to spend any fab to go get them. They're already on your roster. So I would prioritize these guys if you have an extra roster spot to spare over like an extra wide receiver, a backup quarterback, or a backup tight end, something like that. Moving on to the wide receivers, not a ton of guys that I'm like must add this week, but some guys that are available that could help you win this week. Van Jefferson has a decent matchup here. Is rostered in 47% of Yahoo leagues. So he, coming off a big game there. So that's nice. AJ Green rostered in 41% of Yahoo leagues. Gets Chicago. Kyler Murray's probably healthy. Presumably will be healthy for this game. So you got to love that as well and what that could do for AJ Green's upside. Kadarius Toney rostered in 47% of Yahoo leagues. This one's tricky because he didn't play in Week 12, but if he can play in Week 13, has a nice matchup here against the Miami Dolphins. And, Miami Dolphins, they got torched, a little torched, I should say, by DJ Moore and company in week 12. They got roasted by Elijah Moore in week 11. And so Kadarius Toney, who's going to face a ton of man coverage, should be able to have some fun here against the Miami Dolphins. Kendrick Bourne, rostered in 23% of Yahoo leagues. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He's seen five targets or so in the last 4 or 5 games. Gets a matchup against Buffalo, who just lost Trey White. I think that Kendrick Bourne has some upside here for this Patriots offense that is up and coming. And then at tight end, there's not much there, but I will throw out, with Dan Arnold being injured, James O'Shaughnessy, he stepped in. He ran 81%. He ran a route on almost 82% of the dropbacks, according to a blurb I read on NBC Sports Edge. So he was actually the lead tight end, and was a guy that I was on to prior to him getting injured and them sending out a trade to go get Dan Arnold to bring in here. So it's just kind of weird how that happens. But James O'Shaughnessy, I think, has some basically the same streaming upside that Dan Arnold had. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you spending this time with me. We will get Greg back, so make sure you come back on Wednesday. Kick it with us. We'll obviously be breaking down Thursday Night Football as the New Orleans Saints take on the Dallas Cowboys. So that game will be interesting. We obviously know Mike McCarthy. If you haven't been paying attention to the news, maybe you haven't heard, Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, will be unavailable for that game. So that'll also make this interesting. So hopefully y'all won. Hopefully you're one step closer to your playoff. And just keep vibing with this, because it's going to be fun, man. It's definitely going to be fun. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for kicking with us. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We love you, and we're out of here. Peace.